a 34-year-old immigrant, a self-described democratic socialist, minimal name recognition. Yet he just won the biggest mayoral race in the city that never sleeps. Some call him a visionary, others a dangerous dreamer. This man is about to reshape New York City, and whether that leads to hope or havoc depends on what happens next. Who really is Zohran Mamdani? What did he promise? And is his bold vision for New York a path to revival or to collapse? Let's start from the beginning. Zohran Mamdani was born on October 18, 1991, in Kampala, Uganda. His family, his father a scholar, his mother a noted filmmaker, had deep intellectual and artistic roots. When he was 7 years old, his family moved to New York City. He grew up in Queens, studied at the Bronx High School of Science, then earned a bachelor's degree in Africana Studies from Bowdoin College in 2014. Mamdani became a U.S. citizen in 2018, but he didn't choose the easy path. After college, instead of joining a corporate job or turning to fame, he spent time as a foreclosure prevention counselor, helping low-income homeowners in Queens fight eviction and navigate the city's brutal housing market. That experience, he has said, exposed him to the harsh reality of housing inequality and planted the seeds for his political ambition. In 2020, he ran for office and stunned many when he defeated a longtime incumbent to win a seat in the New York State Assembly, representing parts of Queens, Astoria, Ditmar-Steinway, Astoria Heights. He was re-elected unopposed in 2022 and 2024. In short, immigrant, community organizer, housing counselor, assembly member, now mayor-elect of one of the world's greatest cities. Some might say it's the American dream, but make no mistake, his story is also rooted in struggle, sacrifice, and a deep exposure to inequality. In October 2024, Mamdani announced he was running to become mayor of New York City. At that point, most political commentators dismissed him as a long shot. He lacked name recognition, campaign funds were modest, and he had none of the big bucks backing traditional candidates enjoy. Yet by June 24, 2025, he stunned New York, winning the Democratic primary with 56% of the vote against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who got 44%. But that was just the start. In the general election, facing both Cuomo, who ran as an independent, and a Republican candidate, Mamdani emerged victorious, making history on multiple counts. He became the first mayor of New York City of Muslim faith, the first of South Asian descent to hold the position, the first mayor born in Africa, Uganda, also one of the youngest mayors in modern NYC history.
How did he do it? The secret? A powerful combination of grassroots energy, social media savvy, and a laser focus on what most New Yorkers worry about: affordability. In many working-class and immigrant neighborhoods, communities ignored by traditional political elites, his message resonated. You can't afford rent. You can't afford your groceries. You can't afford transit. That simple, repeated message mobilized tens of thousands of voters, many of them first-time voters or people who'd felt politically invisible. In a city long run by establishment politics, this was a political earthquake. Mamdani's campaign hinged on a progressive, radical-sounding but deeply populist platform. Here are the main pillars of his vision for New York: free or affordable public transit and climate vision. He proposed making city buses fare-free, a bold plan that would reduce costs for everyday New Yorkers and increase public transit usage. He also talked about freezing subway fares or reducing burden and pairing transit reform with climate-friendly infrastructure, more bike lanes, congestion pricing, better cross-borough connectivity.
2. Housing and affordability. Putting renters first. One core promise: rent freeze for all rent-stabilized apartments to protect tenants from sudden increases. He proposed creation of a social housing development agency, building publicly owned, permanently affordable housing. Strengthening tenant protections, rolling back rent hikes on city-owned properties, all aimed at giving working-class and immigrant families security. 3. Combating cost of living, grocery, wages, and childcare. He talked about opening city-owned grocery stores in underserved neighborhoods, food deserts, lowering food costs, and giving access to healthy options. Universal child care and early education to help working parents. A plan to gradually move toward a $30 minimum wage by 2030 to improve living standards for lower-income workers.
4. Taxing the rich, funding the dream. To pay for all this, he proposed raising the corporate tax rate, plus adding a surcharge on individuals earning more than $1 million a year. According to his campaign, those revenues could generate billions annually, potentially funding social programs without drastically cutting other services. 5. Public safety and social services. Reimagining policing. Rather than doubling down on traditional policing, Mamdani supports establishing a Department of Community Safety. Crisis responders, mental health professionals, outreach workers, de-emphasizing the role of police in non-criminal emergencies. He has openly said that policing should not automatically be the first response to social problems, a shift in mindset many see as necessary for NYC's future. If he succeeds, New York could see free transit, cheaper rent, safer neighborhoods, affordable groceries, better childcare. A city where being poor or working class doesn't equal being trapped. But as you'll see, that vision holds huge risks, and the path to realizing it will be anything but smooth.
Why supporters call him a visionary. For many ordinary New Yorkers, tenants, bus riders, immigrants, service workers, gig economy laborers, Mamdani's promises represent hope, real hope. No more being priced out of your apartment every few years. No more choosing between paying rent and groceries. No more skipping bus rides because fares are too high. No more relying on police for social problems, but mental health professionals and community support. That's why many see him as a visionary, someone willing to challenge entrenched power, confront inequality, and build a city that works for ordinary people. In a public statement after his election, he said the win was a mandate for change, for a city we can actually afford. For supporters, his identity, immigrant, person of color, outsider, means he understands the city's marginalized communities in a way the old political elite never could. Moreover, by mobilizing grassroots support instead of corporate donors, he broke the mold of soft money politics. A fresh generation rising. But for all the dream, there are serious questions. 1. Big promises, bigger costs. Can the budget handle it? Free buses, public groceries, universal childcare, rent freeze, these are massive social programs, expensive even for a city as rich as New York. Some analysts warn the price tag could run into billions of dollars annually. Depending heavily on increased taxes on the wealthy and corporations. But in a global city with many wealthy residents and mobile capital, who's to say they won't flee or lobby hard to avoid paying? 2. Institutional resistance and power structure, the deep state of NYC. New York has entrenched interests. Real estate developers, big landlords, corporate investors, elite institutions. Many benefit from the status quo. They won't go quietly. To transform a city that large, Mamdani will need cooperation from state-level officials, business leaders, and bureaucracies used to older ways of doing things. Will he get that cooperation?
3. Complexity of social problems, housing, transit, poverty, not easy fixes. Housing issues aren't just about rent. They involve supply, zoning, landlords, tax incentives, urban planning. A rent freeze helps, but without building new affordable housing at scale, supply pressure remains. Making buses free can increase ridership, but also strains infrastructure, increases maintenance costs, and may require dramatic expansion. Public safety reforms and moving responsibility from police to social services is morally appealing. But will the social services in place of police model be robust enough to respond to real crime or emergencies? 4. Political backlash from citizens, institutions, and opponents. Many New Yorkers worry, will taxes go up for ordinary people too? Will services deteriorate? Will public spaces become chaotic? Powerful institutions, landlords lobbyists, landlords with influence might fight back, challenge rent freezes, use legal or political tools to block housing reforms. Even within politics, centrists, moderates, business-friendly Democrats might oppose him, limiting what he can actually implement. In short, critics see him as a dangerous dreamer because they fear that his idealistic sweeping agenda could backfire, burden the city, anger influential stakeholders, and ultimately fail.
What happens if he succeeds? A New York remade. Imagine a New York where buses and public transit are free, no fare, no worries. Rent increases are checked. Stable housing is real for working people and immigrants. Grocery prices are lower in neighborhoods that struggle now. Single parents don't have to choose between childcare and work. Social services, mental health, community outreach handle crises, not just police. A fairer tax structure ensures the wealthy pay their share. Working people don't drown under rising living costs. That would be a city transformed, not just for a few, but for millions. A city that remembers its working-class roots and values equality over profit. Some would call that a rebirth, a model for big, diverse global cities everywhere.
What happens if he fails? Programs start, but funding dries up. Taxes from the wealthy get blocked. Capital flees. Budget gaps widen. Overloaded transit. Overcrowded buses, deteriorating infrastructure, delayed services. Landlord resistance leads to legal battles. Rent freezes overturned. Housing instability returns. Social services become overstretched, understaffed. Community safety program fails to meet expectations. Public frustration, disillusionment. Voters who once believed may feel betrayed. Polarization increases. Wealthy versus working class, old guard versus new radicals, social unrest, protests, clashes. The ideal of a city for all could collapse under its own weight, leaving New York more divided than before. That's the gamble, a gamble on hope, on radical change, but also a gamble on whether reality, institutions, and human nature will cooperate. So, after tracing his history, his rise, his promises, his risks, where does that leave us? Zohran Mamdani is, undeniably, a visionary of a kind we rarely see. His rise from immigrant and housing counselor to mayor-elect is a story of grit, empathy, and ambition. His political platform speaks to millions whose voices are often ignored. But he is also a dreamer, with dreams so big they will test the limits of New York's economy, politics, and social structure. Whether he becomes a hero or a cautionary tale depends on 1,000 moving parts: turnout, political will, economic conditions, institutional pushback, and ultimately, execution and accountability. For now, he's a symbol. A test, a promise, and yes, a dangerous dreamer. Dangerous because if he fails, the fallout will be felt by millions. But hopeful because if he succeeds, he could turn New York into a model for justice, equality,
and dignity.
If you want to follow what happens next, here are the key things to watch. How does Mamdani's administration approach funding? Do the tax reforms pass? Do wealthy New Yorkers and corporations resist or leave? What happens to housing? Is new affordable housing built? Do rent freezes hold up under legal and textual challenges? Is public transit improved? Free buses or free fare implemented with quality maintained? Do social service reform and the proposed Department of Community Safety roll out effectively or collapse under pressure? How does New York's social fiber react? Do communities rally support or does division grow? Because ultimately, this isn't just about one politician. It's about the future of one of the world's most influential cities and whether it can be reimagined for the many instead of the few. So, what do you think? Is Zohran Mamdani a visionary hero bringing hope to millions, or a dreamer playing with fire, risking New York's stability? Drop your thoughts in the comments.